Hi everybody, welcome to the electrical presentation for the residential flats at London Road. We're going to start with the consumer unit. The consumer unit is the first point at which the electrical supply enters the flat. When we open the front cover, we get the main switch. The main switch, this will disconnect all electricity to all outgoing circuits from this point. It is the overriding safety feature. If you ever have any concerns that there is an electrical risk within the dwelling, straight away that switch goes off. Also, if you'll then come into the flat and there is no electricity, that's the first place to look. The second thing to look at is these two RCCBs. RCCBs are a residual current circuit breaker. If there is a fault or an imbalance in the network caused by faulty equipment or dogs chewing through leads is another classic one, these devices will trip to off. You have secondary devices which are MCBs. These are primarily against faulty equipment or someone putting a nail through a cable in a wall, i.e. hanging up a shelf. Should any of the devices trip, the easiest thing to do is just to come back and put them in the up position. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a moment. There is no maintenance per se on this piece of equipment. However, it is recommended that 4 times a year, as denoted by this label here, you come to the unit, you press the yellow button, the main switch trips to the off position. That shows that the device has worked. You then reset it and the device will come back on. Now, you can hear some clicking at the moment. That is the HIU resetting itself because it knows the power's just gone off. And it will continue for maybe 40-45 seconds. The MCBs have no maintenance on them whatsoever. They do not need to be turned off at any time. They do not need any activities on them. If you have a device fail within the property, so you go into the bedroom and the light's not working, you can come back to here and check all the devices are in the on position. If all the devices are in the on position and you haven't blown a lamp, then you need to call an electrician because something more fundamental has occurred. But there really isn't any more to say. The circuits are labelled up. They're split. So on breaker 1, you have power and lighting. On breaker 2, you have power and lighting. It was only fairly recently, under the European harmonisation regulations, that RCCBs, Bs and BOs were fitted in all domestic dwellings. The problems occurred early on were that where only one device was fitted, if we had a dodgy kettle, then the whole dwelling was knocked off. So now we have 2 and we balance the circuits over both sides so that you don't lose all of the lighting or all of the power. It might be worth noting the next time this unit is due for testing is 10 years from now, as per the label on the front. Nothing needs to happen in that time unless obviously something has gone wrong. Also contained within this cupboard, there's a double socket, which in this case is being used for the washer dryer. And in all cases, there is a spur. We call a spur, it's an electrical connection from the power system. And in this case, this one feeds the HIU. It must not be turned off. The only reason there is a switch there is because the maintenance workers have to have a means of isolation local to the piece of equipment to be maintained. That is for that purpose. Earth connections. From the consumer unit, there is an earth connection to the pipework going into the HIU and across the pipework leaving the HIU. This must not be disconnected. There are safety labels which tell you this must not be disconnected. If it is disconnected, it does place people at risk. Should there be a fault that connects the live to any part of the grounded network or any part of the pipework, i.e. through a sink, then if these earth connections are not present, that electricity cannot be taken away and therefore it's more likely to pass through the person who's interrupting that flow of electricity. And yeah, so they must not be removed, as the labels state. They are safety connections. Within the kitchen, we have a number of general purpose socket outlets located in different places. They are, as they appear, just general purpose socket outlets. Every piece of fixed equipment also has a switch or a spur. So if we take, for example, the dishwasher, though there's not one fitted in this flat at this time, has a switch above, and then located below, behind the panel, is an outlet. The reason for the switch above is that once the equipment is fitted in position, the homeowner does not have easy access to that means of isolation. So we give them a means of isolation on the top, and it's labelled as such. The oven and hob, exactly the same again. There are connection devices behind these units, which are there for maintenance purposes, replacement purposes, not for the homeowner really to be accessing, but we give the homeowner access to controlling the devices with switches on the top. The hood is a slightly different situation because the connection to it is a direct wiring solution, so the cable literally comes out of the wall and into the unit. In order then that it can be controlled and maintained, we have a switch fuse spur. Now, should you come to the unit one afternoon and turn it on via the switches located underneath and it doesn't operate, obviously we check to make sure it's turned on, still doesn't operate. We ensure that all of the MCBs are in the on position as previously discussed, still it doesn't work. There is one more thing that the local person can do, and that is to take a screwdriver to this screw here, turn it through 90 degrees, and then pop the fuse out. The fuse in there is a 1361, which is a standard plug top fuse. Fuses should only be replaced by like fuses of a similar rating or the same rating, never higher, but can be lower. You then replace the fuse and reverse the process. Once you've pushed back the carrier, you turn the screw back through 90 degrees to the lock position. You can then attempt to use the hood again. Should it not operate at that point, then you need to call out either someone from the kitchen specialist or an electrician. I don't know who would be more suited because we don't know what the fault is yet. But there is nothing else that the tenant or homeowner can actually do. Again, with the microwave, there is a connection unit behind the microwave. It's not a user accessible item. It is there for maintenance, and it is there should at any time the unit be replaced. It does also have the switch below, and it serves the same function as below. This is the entertainment area. Two general purpose sockets, because as we know, we've got TVs, videos, DVDs and all the rest of it. And it's not a good idea to have a lot in the way of trailing leads. I don't recommend that at all. We then have the media outlet plate. We have two outlets which are for Sky. There is the opportunity to have a normal Sky service with no recordable features, no Sky Plus features, or the second Sky Aerial, which allows you then to have the recording and watching one channel whilst recording another channel facilities, and also the opportunity to have the telephone outlet, which gives you access to the download facilities and other Sky benefits. Also included within the media plate is a normal, quote, terrestrial aerial, which allows people to plug in a Freeview box and receive television in the old-fashioned way, if you will, and also a very old-fashioned FM socket. FM sockets are still specified. They're very rarely used, but if you do have an FM receiver set, you can connect it there and you will get an excellent FM signal. Right, now we're going to talk about the home office and comms links within the dwellings. At handover, every dwelling is fitted with a BT OpenReach outlet. However, the tenants do have an option to take a second service, which is provided by a company called HyperOptic. The HyperOptic service will offer those who require higher data streams a better service, but if you don't require a very high density data service, then you can stick with the British Telecom option. The next part of this area is the home office area. Now, The idea is that once you've selected the service provider, that then you can connect that to the patch outlets located near the settee. They then run internally through the walls 2 outlets in the bedroom, the living room. There's 3 to 4 outlets depending on the size of the flat. In order to bridge that gap, you use the router equipment that's provided by your provider. So in the case of this unit, this would be plugged into either the OpenReach or the secondary provider. The outlets are then plugged across to the network that's local within the dwelling, and then you pick up the service locally. So it means you don't have trailing wires. Extra sockets are provided because the theory is that you can have a home office here, and routers, laptops, PCs, and towers and so on all require multiple connections. And as I've said before, we don't recommend the excessive use of trailing leads. The question from the floor was what will be provided at handover in terms of either BT or hyperoptic. BT is a simple answer. That unit's there, and that's the primary offer. Okay. The hyperoptic network is all sitting in the risers. It's all the way. The whole infrastructure is there sitting. It simply needs that plate to be removed, hyperoptics plate to be installed, and a patch solution down in the comms room. It's an hour or so's work only. Each of the flats is fitted on the balconies with a small LED light. And the purpose of this light is really only to light the threshold. It's so that you can see there's a transition between the living space and the balcony space, which reduces tripping. The reason and the logic behind there not being a nice big balcony light is that the local planning conditions stipulated that we want to reduce light pollution and energy wastage. Therefore, a small light, really only to take up the safety issue, was fitted and is operated by the switch on the inside. And it does look very small and it does look very weak, but it's been calculated by myself to demonstrate that it does actually provide enough light so that you can be aware of the transition. And that's all it's there for. The bathrooms are all fitted with LED downlighters. They are IP67 rated, which means you can sort of pretty heavily splash them and they're going to be fine. You have to really immerse them in lots and lots of water to actually make them blow up. So they're very safe in this environment. They do not have changeable lamps. The life expectancy on this unit is around 70,000 lumen hours, which is the amount of time that it's actually operating, which, give or take, in most usage will equate to 7 to 10 years. At that point in time, the whole unit has to be replaced. But it's simply a case of popping the unit from the ceiling with a tool. The spring clips are then visible. Depress the spring clips, remove the unit. It's got a plug on the end of it. You take it off the plug and you go down to your local wholesaler and they will give you a replacement item. Also within in the bathroom, there's a small shaver cupboard which has an electrical supply for a vanity light for use internally, shaver socket, and also the vanity light will light the mirror. And there's nothing really to add to it. There's no maintainable parts. It has an LED, but the LED again is not something that can be, there's no bulb as such to it. Although similar units can be found at the likes of B&Q and Wickes. And it's electrically connected from a plate at the back. This is the video entry system. Should anybody ring your particular flat, you can press this button and that will accept the call. When you want to end the call, again you press that button, that ends the call. If you wish to allow that person access to the building, you press the button with the key on it. That will then release the lock on the front door. If you just, for whatever reason, wish to know who's around and about, you can press this button. And there we are. So that's, if for example, I don't know, the person doesn't make a good contact, or they lose the signal their end, you can actually call it up your end. That's the real purpose of this. There are many, many other functions with this unit. You can call other dwellings. You can assign other tasks to key functions. All of that is included within the full manual. But realistically, people aren't going to use it. People want to be able to accept a call, let people in, and sometimes people want to have a nose. And really, that's it. Every flat has a fire detector, or smoke detector as it should be called. They're all located in the hallway spaces, and they're all supplied from the mains supply. They also have a battery backup. During normal operation, the device will make no noises, no sounds. There are a range of sounds, though it does make. It can make an intermittent bleeping. That generally tells you that the mains is off and that it's working on battery. Should the battery start to fail, it then changes its tone again to a sort of a drowned squeal, which I can't replicate because obviously it's all working normally. You will notice there's a clear button on the front, and every now and then you'll see a little pulse, a little colour. That just tells you that it's working correctly. The units can and should be tested on a regular basis. The manufacturer recommends once a month. This is done, if you're a short ass like me, with the use of a small stick, and you hold down the button. All right. That then tells you that the device is okay. You then release the button, and that's it. There's nothing else you can do. It's done a self-test. It's given you an audible tone to say that, yes, I'm working. You can hear that the alarm part is working, obviously, and there's nothing more for the user to do. It's not linked to the external fire system. The fire strategy for these buildings is that everything is contained within the dwelling. So you have a fire within your dwelling. The smoke detector in your dwelling tells you that you have a fire. It's dealt with in situ, so you call the fire brigade come to you, it's dealt with, and it's not part of a global system. So Mrs. Smith burning a toast will not mean that everybody gets chucked out to the street at 2 o'clock in the morning. All right, each dwelling has been fitted with a spur designed for a future intruder system. No other work has been done other than to provide the spur, so the home owner has the choice as whether to include a security system within the dwelling. That's really it.